Have you ever looked at a visionary founder and just wondered, what is it? What makes them tick? Is it something they're born with? Something they learn? Or is it just about being in the right place at the right time? Well, we're going to dig into that and try to unpack what really makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur.
So which is it really? Are these people a product of their own unique psychology? Are they shaped by the society they grow up in? Or are they just really, really sharp economic players who see an opportunity that the rest of us just walk right past? Let's investigate.
Okay, before we dive into the why, let's just lock in the what. The source material defines this whole thing, entrepreneurial behavior, as more than just, starting a company. It's about taking innovative action, embracing risk, all in the hopes of getting a good return. And this idea is going to be super important as we go.
All right, first up, we're going deep inside the mind of the entrepreneur. These theories argue that the spark, that special something, is internal. It's a specific mindset, a psychological drive that just makes certain people tick differently than the rest of us.
We're going to look at three big thinkers here. For Schumpeter, it's all about creating something brand new. For McClelland, it's this deep internal need to achieve something great. And for Hagen, well, his idea is a really fascinating one. It's about what happens when you lose your social status.
For Joseph Schumpeter, it all comes down to one word: innovation. He's famous for this idea of creative destruction. And what he's saying is, you're not an entrepreneur just because you run a business. No, you are an entrepreneur only in those moments when you are creating something fundamentally new. A new product, a new way of doing things, a whole new market that totally shakes up the old way.
Now, David McClelland looked at it a bit differently. He was all about what's going on inside. He argued that the most powerful entrepreneurs have what he called a high need for achievement. This means it's not really about the money or the fame for them. It's a personal, burning desire to overcome a challenge, to do something difficult. For them, the money, that's just how they keep score.
Okay, now this next one is fascinating. Everett Hagen came up with this status withdrawal theory. He said, imagine a whole social group that loses its respected place in society. Maybe their industry collapses or they get pushed to the margins. He proposed that some people in that group react by totally rejecting the old ways. They become these incredibly creative problem solvers. In this case, adversity literally becomes the fuel for innovation.
All right, let's pull back from the individual's mind for a second. What if the secret isn't in them, but all around them? Sociological theories say, hey, hold on a minute. Culture, values, and social structures, these are the things that create the fertile ground for entrepreneurship to even happen.
So here, we've got three new angles to consider. Haslitz connects it all to leadership and how flexible a culture is. Weber ties it to a society's deep-seated ethical values. And Cochrane, he has this really interesting idea of a model personality.
Basically, Haslitz is saying that entrepreneurs can't just pop up anywhere. They do best in societies that are flexible, cultures that give people a lot of choices and aren't super rigid. In those kinds of places, people with leadership and management skills feel free to step up and actually do something new.
Now, this is probably one of the most famous theories in the bunch. Max Weber argued that certain cultural values can basically supercharge an entire economy. He looked at the Protestant ethic and saw this powerful idea that working hard and pursuing profit wasn't just about getting rich. It was seen as a moral, almost spiritual duty. That mindset, he said, created the cultural bedrock for capitalism to just explode.
This next one kind of flips a common assumption right on its head. Thomas Cochrane suggests that entrepreneurs aren't the rebels or the outsiders we often think they are. No, he says they are the perfect embodiment of their society's model personality. So, for instance, if a culture really values being thrifty and working hard, the most successful entrepreneur is probably going to be the person who best represents those exact traits. They succeed because they fit in so perfectly with their culture's values.
All right, for our final leg of the journey, we're going to strip away the psychology and the sociology and just follow the money. Economic theories argue that, at its core, entrepreneurship is a rational response to opportunities and incentives in the market. It's all about the numbers.
And we're going to zoom in on two key economic ideas here. First is Israel Kirzner, who sees entrepreneurs as people who spot gaps between prices. Then there's Harvey Leibenstein, who says the real magic happens when they fix inefficiencies inside a company.
Kirzner's entrepreneur is basically an opportunist with incredibly sharp eyes. They are constantly scanning the market, looking for imbalances. They notice when something is selling for cheap over here, but people are willing to pay a lot more for it over there. That gap, that's the opportunity, and the act of jumping on it is called arbitrage.
It's a pretty simple process when you break it down. 1, you spot a price difference. 2, you realize a buyer will pay more or a seller will take less. 3, bang, an arbitrage opportunity exists. And 4, the entrepreneur steps in, makes the connection, and realizes a profit. And in doing so, they actually make the whole market a little more efficient. It's a win-win.
So this is a really neat way to see the difference. You've got Kerzner's entrepreneur looking for gaps outside the company, out there in the market. But Leibenstein's entrepreneur is looking for gaps inside the firm. They're looking for what he called X-inefficiency. Wasted materials, pointless meetings, old software. All the little things that make a company less productive than it could be. The entrepreneur is the one who steps in to fill those gaps and fix the problems.
So we've looked at this puzzle from 3 totally different angles: the psychological, the sociological, and the economic. So how do we put all these pieces together to see the full picture?
Well, here's the thing. The real answer isn't about picking one winner. These theories aren't fighting each other for the capital T truth. It's way more helpful to think of them as different lenses, like different pairs of glasses you can put on to look at the very same person.
So you've got the psychological lens, which is all about what's going on upstairs, that internal drive. Then there's the sociological lens, which sees them as a product of their specific time and place. And finally, the economic lens, which sees them as sharp, rational players who spot opportunities the rest of us miss. Each lens shows you a different but equally important part of the story.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that a truly successful entrepreneur is probably a perfect storm. They have the right psychological mindset, that internal fire. They exist in the right society, one that supports and encourages their ambition, and they are in the right economic time, alert enough to see and act on a real opportunity when it comes along.
And that kind of brings it all back to you. Think about the entrepreneurs you know, or the famous founders you admire. Is their success best explained by their personality, their culture, or just brilliant market timing? The answer, most likely, is a little bit of everything. Thanks for watching.